Ha! Bet you thought that I was done. I bet you thought that the 3 or 4 weeks it's been since I last uploaded that absolute shit video about Endrick. I bet you thought that was me dead and buried. You're not going to get rid of me that easily, folks. I am back with the mic in my hand in front of the camera, ready to start a new era of maybe a little bit more consistent uploading to the James Knows Nothing channel. I don't really have much of an excuse as to why I've been away. Just bear in mind that I do obviously have a job on top of this, as most YouTubers do, or most small YouTubers like myself. However, I am back and I am ready to go. So, a lot has happened since I last uploaded my video. In fact, the last video that I did upload was during the international break, and since then, my God, has a lot happened. But today, we are going to be focusing mainly on the recent Champions League quarter-final results. So last night was Man City, Real Madrid, and Bayern Munich, Arsenal. Generally, I'm just going to be giving my reaction to the Champions League so far. I haven't got a script, not that you really need to know that. I haven't really planned this video much. I'm just going to be giving you my genuine, authentic reaction. Without further ado, let us get into the boring process of you guys watching a man who knows literally nothing about anything try and talk about something. So let's start with Borussia Dortmund, who played Atletico Madrid. Now, I think that a lot of people going into the second leg of this game thought that Atletico would be able to pull it off, and it was a really tight game. Borussia Dortmund beat Atletico Madrid. It was kind of going back and forth, and eventually Borussia Dortmund, I think it was Marcel Sabitzer, got the winning goal, and that means that Borussia Dortmund will now go on to play PSG in the semi-finals of the Champions League. It's very difficult, and I think this epitomises modern football, but it is very difficult to entertain a reality where we see Borussia Dortmund going any further than the semi-finals. So for Dortmund, that's a really good season, considering that they are generally a feeder club for other bigger European teams. The fact that they've still managed to progress this deep into, the creme de la creme of football is really impressive to them, and hats off. I think they've got a really interesting young group of players. I also think that Julian Brandt was really, really good when he played the other night against Atletico Madrid. Atletico will probably look back at that game and think, very similar to Liverpool at the moment, they just can't seem to finish their chances. I know that Alvaro Morata has not been scoring as efficiently as he was at the start of the season. He missed a really good chance. The goals that Dortmund scored as well, they weren't scrappy goals. They were really well worked goals. There's a lovely header from, I have no idea what the guy's name is now, but the headed goal was really good. Julian Brandt's goal as well, smashing it into the back of the net, and hopefully they put up a decent match against PSG. We'll see. Now, on that note of PSG, let's talk about PSG Barcelona. Barcelona fans, how are you feeling about Ousmane Dembele? Just hasn't scored a goal or done anything in football for 25 years and is now all of a sudden popped up to knock Barcelona out the Champions League. I don't think that we should criticise Ousmane Dembele for celebrating against Barcelona. I don't think it's that deep, really. And also, he's a PSG player. PSG fans are the ones that now pay his wages, or support the club that pays his wages. Barcelona now obviously out the Champions League. I'm not going to lie, I haven't been keeping up with Barcelona that much this season. I don't know. Are they good? Are they good? I don't know. Are they good? But PSG, and especially Kylian Mbappe, I think are fucking dark horses and should not be written off from this year's Champions League. Especially when you look at the teams that they would potentially have to face, being either, they'll play Dortmund, which I think we all agree PSG should win that match. Anything can happen in European football, but PSG should realistically come away from that game with a win. And then they will either play Madrid or Bayern in the final. If Bayern go through, I still fancy PSG to win that. Bayern Munich haven't been playing up to their usual standards this season. They've obviously lost the Bundesliga. They're not in the DFB Pokal. If you put Mbappe against that team, who are probably lacking in confidence a lot, I think he could tear them a new one. Genuinely. There's potentially in Mbappe's brain a little more desire to go and win the Champions League with PSG. As much as he has been wildly successful at PSG, to leave and then obviously go to Madrid or wherever he goes in the summer, having won the Champions League, it kind of just ends his PSG career on a really positive note. And again, PSG fans tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that even though he's done so much for the club, I still think that there is a little bit of disdain from the fans towards him, because they're like, you're a Parisian, you keep saying how much you love the club, yet like every 3 years you're desperate to leave and you have to be offered insane amounts of money and power just to keep you at a club that you allegedly want to be at. PSG again looking good. Mbappe obviously played really well. Ousmane Dembele played really well. On their day, could Dortmund snatch a win? Of course they could. Well, that would put them in the final with either Madrid or Bayern. So let's talk about Madrid and Bayern. So obviously Real Madrid beat Man City on penalties. This again was an incredibly tight game. It was so difficult to split, really. I think that Man City are now that good that Madrid were kind of very reactive rather than proactive in this game, and Man City were just constantly probing, trying to find a way through. I think Jack Grealish had a really good game. He always seems to show up in the Champions League. So he was on the losing side for a player that some people have said his City career's done. Some people have said that Pep wants to, has moved away from Jack Grealish now. He should give himself a lot of credit for that performance, because at certain times in that game, Jack Grealish was arguably City's most dangerous player. Obviously, he had that shot from outside the box that Andre Lunin saved, who started off this season as Madrid's third choice keeper, and is obviously, due to factors outside his control of injuries of Courtois, has managed to get himself a first place spot in the Madrid team, and he's done really, really well. Him saving penalties against Bernardo Silva and Matija Kovacic. Even in the game, he played really well. Like I said, he did a good job of stopping Jack Grealish from scoring a few goals. Can we talk about Haaland? Can we talk about him? Like, what's going on? Erling, my guy, what is going on? Erling Haaland was incredibly quiet for most of that game. He has been for a lot of this season, really. This taps into an argument where people sometimes get a little bit distracted by numbers. Now, last season, Erling Haaland put up the numbers and was also, if Messi hadn't won the World Cup, should have got the Ballon d'Or. However, this season, sure, Haaland is still putting up incredible numbers, but I think this just goes to show that you can kind of get output with still maybe not performing at your highest level, especially when you play for a Pep Guardiola side who will score relentlessly. You're always going to get numbers, but that isn't necessarily an honest reflection of your quality of play throughout the season. But it is very easy to kind of look at Man City, look at them going out the Champions League and point the finger at Haaland and be like, where were you in the big moment? Obviously, Kevin De Bruyne also played really well, as he always does. It was such a difficult game to split, really, and I think that it is, to be honest, it was fair that it was settled on penalties. In the game, both teams looked incredible. Jude Bellingham, obviously, just continues to be world class. There's not an awful lot more I can say about him that hasn't been said already. And I would also maybe put this City loss down to fatigue. They're used to playing, 60, 70 games a season. They did last year when they won the treble. However, after a certain point, mentally, it does take a toll on you. Like, I'm a Liverpool fan. I definitely saw a drop off in the Liverpool sides from, challenging City and losing the Champions League finals and constantly having to pick yourself back up after those losses. And maybe Man City and even Pep is struggling with a bit of burnout and a bit of fatigue, because it's just every year having to play out your skin in semi-finals, in finals, in quarter-finals. In the Premier League, then always having to perform as well, which they have done to this super high level, will cause burnout, and that might be what we're going to see. I'm not going to jump on this Man City hate train. I think that they won the treble last year, they got to the Champions League quarterfinals this year, they're probably still going to win the Prem. Liverpool and Arsenal have thrown that away. It's not really a bad season for them, is it? And they lost to a very, very good Madrid side, with the likes of Rodrigo, who's been unbelievable this season, Vinny Jr., Bellingham, and then when you sprinkle in that the Toni Krooses, the Luka Modric's, the more experienced players in the squad, that is such a difficult side to beat. Finally, we need to talk about Arsenal versus Bayern Munich. I think this is the most contentious game in terms of the questions it raises. So Bayern and Arsenal both really playing only for the Champions League, with Arsenal obviously losing to Aston Villa. That kind of has put them now in a position where they have to rely on City to lose rather than them to win. So it's in our control. If we win every game, we win the Champions League. And nothing really happened, to be honest. Like, Joshua Kimmich got a goal, but again, just it's the same as the Villa performance on the weekend. It was just quite flat. I don't know, I might be way off the... I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm a football analyst.
Oh, really? It's...
And I know that lots of you will know a lot more about football than I will. I think maybe going back to the psychology of football, the psychological damage that losing to Villa and therefore potentially throwing away the league would have done to Arsenal, to then ask them to pick themselves up, 3 or 4 days later, and go and play against Bayern Munich in the Allianz. It's a big ask, so I don't think that you can be awfully overcritical of Arsenal. It was a flat game, for me at least. I didn't enjoy it so much. And this now has obviously started to raise the question of Arsenal's season. Has it been a success? Has it been a failure? They're going to finish either second or third, probably second in the Premier League, which means Champions League football for another season. They got to the Champions League quarter-final in their first campaign since their last entry, which was God knows how long ago. So it's very, very harsh to call Arsenal's season a failure, but I think when you match the expectations of Arsenal, maybe either from Arsenal fans or other fans, people are expecting them to maybe actually go over the line and win the Champions League and win the Premier League. And it seems there is now starting to be a pattern where they can do it for 7-8 months, but as soon as it gets to the run-in or semi-finals of a big competition, they do seem to flounder a little bit, and they do seem to struggle to sort of step up in the big moments and perform, which is where Madrid thrive. Going back to the Madrid City game, whenever the chips are down and your back's against the wall and you're like, there's no way they can come back from this, Madrid seem to nearly always find a way, and Arsenal don't have that. And it might be harsh to compare Arsenal to Real Madrid, but I think that shows how much Arsenal have progressed as well, from 4 or 5 years ago to now being compared to arguably the best team in Europe. It's not a bad shout, and I think that either getting a new manager manager in if they were to sack Arteta, which I don't think they will, because if we get to this time next year and Arsenal still don't look like they're winning anything, then maybe it is time for Arsenal to consider a different avenue. Again, I don't know who is the guy to take over Arsenal and make them super successful in terms of trophies, but that's a conversation for another day. But I'll give you my prediction for these games. So we've got Bayern Munich versus Real Madrid. I think we're going to be in for a really fun couple of games, but I think that Madrid do go through there. As I've said before, I think that PSG will push Dortmund aside with not ease, but I don't think it will be a tough game for them. Yeah, and I will just have to wait and see then what happens in the final. I'm not going to give a prediction yet because we don't even know who's in there. I would predict that it's going to be PSG versus Real Madrid, Mbappe versus his new side, Bellingham versus Mbappe. You look at the likes of Florian Wirtz, you look at the likes of Jamal Musiala, Phil Foden, obviously Jude Bellingham, Kylian Mbappe is still there, Saka as well. Like the new generation, football's in safe hands. I was a little bit worried when we saw the likes of Suarez and Messi, Ronaldo, Neymar. They were all leaving Europe, and I was worried that we didn't have anybody that was going to step up and fill those roles. But my God, the talent in Europe at the moment is crazy. So yeah, guys. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the Champions League quarterfinals. Just let me know what you think in the comments. I'll see you in the next video, guys. Bye bye.